What's up, fantasy fans? This is Mitchell, and I'm coming at you with the video probably most of you guys have been waiting for, the waiver pickups for the week, waiver / free agent pickups for going into week 2. And it was, like I said in the last video, it was an eventful week, and I had mentioned my win-loss records in the 10 leagues I'm in was 7-10, and I'm bringing that up again, not to brag, but to illustrate an example of what waivers and how it works in case any of you guys are absolutely newbies to fantasy football. All wins aren't the same. If you won one of your games in a league, you're 1-0, and that means, and let's say you're in a 10-team league, 5 teams are 1-0 and 5 teams are 0-1. But that doesn't mean you are all the same. It's quality of the wins. The person who scored the most fantasy points in a win is going to be the #1 ranked team, and the person who scored the least points in their loss is the worst fantasy team. And I bring that up to explain what waivers are. How waivers generally work. And by the way, waivers usually take effect with any free agent additions you did off waivers take effect around 4:30 Eastern if you're playing in ESPN leagues, which is, as I said, what I speak on because that's what I play. So it takes effect early in the morning, so you need to put them in anywhere before 3 a.m. they need to be in for them to take effect. So, but what I was getting back to saying is, in terms of the quality of wins and / losses, there's 2 types of waivers, and this is the one that's in lieu of wins and losses, not in lieu of, but in respect to wins and losses. The first type of waiver system, it resets every week opposite of standings. So, in other words, that team, one of those teams that was 0-1, that worst point scoring team, every week, the worst team in the league in terms of record first, and in this case where records are, the same, everybody's 0-1 that lost, it's the worst points. That person gets the #1 waiver priority every week. Gets #1 priority waiver order this week. In week 2 and forward, it's worst record first and then lowest points or whatever. So it's based on your record. So with that said, a lot of people have been asking me on Twitter and other places that should I hold on to my waiver priority because I want to make this move or that move. If you're playing this regular standard leagues and it's reset every week opposite of standings, it doesn't matter. You need to just be putting your waiver claims in there because it's going to be based off record. You can't hold it. So, and then particularly if you're one of the worst teams, throw them out there to try to get it because you need, this whole thing is sort of like the NBA's draft lottery. They try to give more balls to the worst teams so that they can get a chance of being better. This right here, they give the waiver order to the worst team so that he has a chance to be more competitive. That's one type of waiver, and that's the one you're on if you're in a standard league. But in many custom leagues, and this is the way I learned, and for many years before I ever played standard leagues, it's the system of you drop to the end of the line after getting a waiver claim. This is the one where you want to hold on to your #1 spot, #2 spot, or #3 spot if you got it until you got a person truly worth the waiver selection. So what happens is, if you're the #1, it works opposite of the way you draft it. If you had the #1 pick in the draft, you have the last order in the waivers. And if you were say it's a 10-team league, you were the 10th pick in the draft, you have the #1 pick in waivers. And you keep that #1 pick until you make a waiver decision. As people make waiver decisions, wherever they are in the order of this thing, they drop from wherever they are, rather, to the end of the line. And as somebody makes another one, that person at the end of the line comes up a space. And if somebody else makes one, they come up a space until they get back into more of a pole position. But the point of that is because it works in terms of other people's moves and it doesn't work in terms of record, you want to hold on. If you got number one waiver priority, you want to hold that one on until somebody really comes out there that you want to get. And for example, if there's someone that's out there right now, like say Brandin Cooks is out there in a few leagues, and like 40% of leagues or 35% of leagues left, it's worth using that number one waiver priority to get Brandin Cooks, because after this week, your chances are gone. So if you got the number one priority, you want to use it on a guy like that if he's out there in your league. And then you'll drop to the end of the line, and then as the season goes on, you will come up. But he's going to be worth that number one waiver selection. So that's just an example. And if you're at the bottom of the order in this drop to the end of the line, just throw out waiver selections every time, because you just never know. If somebody don't try to get the guy, you get the guy. So when you're towards the fifth, sixth person and 10th, throw them out every time. Don't hold on to them. You got nothing to hold on to because you're in the bottom of the pile. But when you're in the number one, number two, number three, it's worth holding your waiver spot so that you can try to get a quality waiver addition. Okay, so enough with that. On to the actual waivers. Before I get into the top 10 waiver pickups, I'm going to speak on 3 pickups that you need to get that are heavily owned right now. Before I talk about, because this waiver thing is going to be players that generally no one has in leagues or most people don't have, and these are the people you should be targeting. But these 3 are unowned in more than a percentage that I thought, but they're more percentage owned than unowned. But these guys need to be 100% owned by the week. Brandin Cooks, who had 7 catches for 77 yards on 8 targets and a touchdown. He is only 65.5% owned, so he's got more than 35% of leagues. He's still out there. He needs to be gotten, people. Whoever dropped Ellington and added Dwyer, get rid of Dwyer, get Brandin Cooks. Whoever you got that's a weak receiver out there, even a weak running back, even a weak core, whatever you got to do, get Brandin Cooks. He needs to be on in every league in fantasy. Terrence West, he's owned in 79% of leagues, so he's got like a 21% unowned. With this Ben Tate situation, he needs to be rostered in every league as well. He showed a very solid outing, and he showed that he is a quality runner. And if anything happens to Ben Tate, he's going to be good to go and should be a number one option. So he's another one that should be owned in all leagues this year, as of now. And the last of the 3, Zach Ertz. He's only owned at 69%, which is real crazy to me. I thought he was owning more than that. This whole Brent Selleck committee concern, don't worry about it. Get Zach Ertz in every league that you can. If you got a weak situation in terms of tight end, or if you need a backup, say you've got somebody like in my case, in every league I have Gronk, I have someone like that's backing him up. Zach Ertz is the perfect person to be a complement backup to anyone, or just the second one to have. Zach Ertz needs to be owned in every league because it's clear what he's going to do. Now on to the 10 waiver selections for the week. And it's going to start with the ones that I think is most important down to the least important. The number 1 waiver selection of the week, in my opinion, is a surprise probably that you may not be thinking about. Josh Gordon. As of me recording this video at 7 p.m. Eastern time, we still haven't heard this word that's supposed to come out about the voting in terms of the new drug policy in the league. But what it's supposed to do is, what it's supposed to do is be voted on today, and it could retroactively drop or lessen suspensions of players like Josh Gordon and Wes Welker. So what that does in and of itself is, if he gets anything 4 games or less, he becomes as valuable as your number 1 receiver. For the chance that he could be coming into the league in any day now, if they drop it in full, he becomes a number 1 quarterback for nothing. If he loses 2 games, 3 games, whatever they decide, however they bargain, I have no idea what they're going to do. either way, it's worth the chance picking him up. He's only 25.3% owned in leagues, and you need to be trying to grab Josh Gordon immediately. The worst you find out is later today or tomorrow, that it didn't happen, then you drop him. But for the good chance of what I'm hearing that he gets released from this, a lot of this suspension, if not all of it, it'll make and break your season. Just like how when he came off of his suspensions last year, he changed everybody's season, everybody who took the chance. I was smart, and I picked him up before Sunday's kickoff in every league I can get him in. But now you're going to have to go against the waiver pool and the people bidding for him. Put in your waiver claim for Josh Gordon immediately. Number 2 pick, Kelvin Benjamin. It's only 38% owned, and recently he was dropped by 8%. This week showed everything he's going to do. He was 6 for 92 with a touchdown. There's nothing much need to be said. And he was good even with Derek Anderson throwing to him. He's a big target, and I think he's going to be everything that we expect him to be and more. That's who you want to have, and he's out there in more than 60% of leagues. So everywhere Kelvin Benjamin's available, he needs to be picked up. Kelvin Benjamin needs to be 100% owned after this week. Number 3, Markus Wheaton. He's 28.9% owned, almost 30% owned. He had 7 targets and 6 catches for 97 yards. Ben Roethlisberger is looking for him, and I watched a lot of this game the other day. He's really looking for him because he knows that they're going to be really bracketing Antonio Brown. Him and Markus Wheaton have a great rapport right now, and take advantage of it because it's only going to get better. He's going to move into the old Antonio Brown position, who was in the old Mike Wallace position before Santonio and Hines Ward was there. It seems like everybody on pecking orders in Pittsburgh, they move up solid. So he needs to be owned in all leagues to me. Number 4 pickup, Allen Hurns. A lot of y'all was probably expecting me to say Allen Hurns number 1 because he had a monster game. 4 catches for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns. But the reason he isn't number 1 is because a lot of his production was based on Cecil Shorts not being in the lineup and Marquise Lee being targeted less. But that doesn't mean he doesn't need to be owned. To me, those 3 guys I mentioned before this are much more of a sure thing than Allen Hurns is. Allen Hurns has all the talent in the world. He was great at the U in college, and he had a monster preseason. But with 4 targets total, 4 touches total, and in the second half not making any catches at all, that says his usage was less than what his numbers speak to. And I told you in the last video the 3 T's: targets, touches, touchdowns second. Those 2 touchdowns inflated his score. And the yards on some 2 big plays in the beginning that were direct touchdowns also inflated it. But targets is more important. And because he didn't get but a few number of targets, makes me not so much jumping the gun on him. That doesn't mean don't get him. I think after this week, he should be 100% owned or close to it because of his potential to be the number 1 threat down there and his talent. So get him. But if Markus Wheaton's there first, Kelvin Benjamin's there, and especially Josh Gordon's there, there's no way I'm taking Allen Hurns over any one of those 3. Number 5 is Malcolm Floyd. He's only 5.9% owned in leagues. A lot of people slept on Malcolm Floyd, and I know why, because he had a serious neck injury coming into the year. Not coming into the year, but it took him out last year, and he's coming off of that injury to play, and that's a huge risk. But on the low, Malcolm Floyd had one of the best camps of any receiver in the league, and especially the best camp among the receivers there. And the only reason he wasn't drafted was because of that injury. But Phillip Rivers is looking for him. I mean, he had 4 catches for 50 on 6 targets and a touchdown, and that's only going to get bigger. Phillip Rivers is going to need to throw. They're trying to run more there, but Malcolm Floyd is a really attractive option. Not so much necessarily 100% leagues, but if you've got a receiver deficiency, somebody who you know you didn't necessarily need, or somebody who we're still going to wait to see how they do, like say a Jordan Matthews or somebody like that, I'd rather have Malcolm Floyd than them. You know, I'd rather have Malcolm Floyd than say if you had rostered John Brown for the meantime, because it's looking like he's going to be targeted, and I think he's only going to get more. Number 6, Justin Forsett. By now, everybody knows about the Ray Rice situation. He's done. For at least this year, I think his NFL career is over. But it says a lot when you become. And Bernard Pierce, was benched in game 1. And Justin Forsett came in, had a good game, 11 for 70 with a touchdown. The reason I'm not higher on Justin Forsett is because I know who he is. I've watched him for years, and he's always been that plodding runner that's just kind of whatever. He'll do things that'll get you enticed, and then the next thing you know, because he's not the best back, he's just what it is. And though he has the clear edge as the number 1 running back in this Baltimore offense, it's gonna be questionable to own him, because he's not a sure thing running back. And right now, the Baltimore team has got to be the biggest cloud of funk over them, and that whether you like it or not, that affects performance. So if you got a running back issue, you can do much worse. Go out there and get him. I'd much rather have him than say Jonathan Stewart or something like that, or he becomes almost questionable of possibly having even over a D'Angelo Williams or something like that. I ain't saying drop D'Angelo because he's the clear number 1, but I'm saying if keep an eye on players like D'Angelo Williams and see how they go for the upcoming weeks. Because if Justin Forsett doesn't get claimed in your league, basically the bottom line is forget all of that. I want to see how Justin Forsett does in week 2. Unless I got a true running back deficiency, or this is a great one. Sorry, this is what I should have said first. If any of y'all dropped people and picked up Jonathan Dwyer, pick up Justin Forsett. Okay? Pick up Justin Forsett if that's the case. This Jonathan Dwyer thing was a joke. Pick up Justin Forsett in that case for sure. So that should be a good way to gauge it. Number 7, Andrew Hawkins. I had said that a player to watch for week 1 would be Miles Austin. In week 1 at least, that was a bad call. He's going to be a good waiver pickup this year this week because he had 10 targets, 8 for 87 yards, and he's only 12% owned, so he's out there in a lot of leagues. If you need a good, solid, quality receiver, you can do worse than Andrew Hawkins. And it seems like Brian Hoyer picked up some momentum in the second half. And when the Johnny Manziel thing gets going, somebody's got to catch it because Jordan Cameron is already hurt. Andrew Hawkins is going to see his share and then some. So Andrew Hawkins is a really, really good pickup this week. He should be close to 100% owned. And I didn't say that in terms of Justin Forsett. He should be close to it as well because he's got a clear shot for being a number 1. But Andrew Hawkins, I think he's going to be the clear target there. So he's worth rostering. Like I say, if you've got a bad deficiency at receiver, Andrew Hawkins will be good. If the guys ahead of him that I've named are gone, grab them. And by the way, when you do waivers, in case you're really new, let's say you have Jonathan Dwyer and you know you want him gone. In your waivers, you can put up Jonathan Dwyer for Josh Gordon. If that one doesn't check out because somebody got him, put Jonathan Dwyer for Kelvin Benjamin if he's out there. If somebody had a higher waiver than you and Kelvin Benjamin goes, you can put up Jonathan Dwyer for Markus Wheaton. Alan Hurns. You can have Jonathan Dwyer for a list of 6 people if you many as you want. Meaning if one doesn't go, the next one comes until your waiver priority is granted. So just if you know you want to get rid of somebody, put a person in you rather have and have them in the order of which that you would want to get them. Just a side note in case you didn't know. The number 8 pickup for the week, Levine Toilolo. I didn't know much about him before this game, but his path to success is generally obvious. He's taken over what Tony Gonzalez left, and Matt Ryan really highly looks at and the tight ends to make some moves. And he's a big target in the red zone. He got 6 targets, 3 for 19 yards with a touchdown. And I think that's going to continue. I don't see him having no monster yardage games, but I see him being a touchdown vulture. And I said when it comes to touches, targets, and TDs that it's the most important thing is touches and targets. That's for running backs and receivers. With tight ends, it's a little bit different. Tight ends are, besides the top of the line, are very touchdown dependent. So in his case, if you got a deficiency at tight end, he'd be a good waiver addition. Great second tight end to see what happens because he's good. He's going to be a big target out there. And he's only 1% owned, so it shouldn't be a hard thing getting him. Matter of fact, the other part of waiver pickups is just getting them on free agency once 4:30 clears, at 4:30 a.m. clears. Don't use a waiver priority, especially if you're in drop to the back of the line in custom leagues on a guy like that. Just wait till 4:30 clears, get up in the morning and add him in free agency without a penalty. That's the other way you do waivers. Instead of putting in a claim, wait until they clear waivers and go on free agency the next morning and go get them. With players from 8 Toilolo on down to the end of this list, that's what I would do. I wouldn't use a waiver claim on him. So yeah, but he becomes a good tight end to own. Probably the number 1 tight end pickup of the week. Number 9, Brandin Cooks. I know it's gonna sound crazy because he's been years and years of here's the year that it could happen for him. Here's the year it could happen. But this year, I think he might make a little noise. He had a great camp in preseason, and I don't trust Tavon Austin on the long term. And even with quarterback Austin Davis coming off the bench because Sean Hill got hurt, they still made moves with Brandin Cooks. He had 9 targets and 7 catches for 99 yards. I mean, and in a PPR league, you definitely can do worse than him because they're going to be dinking and dunking a lot. Any quarterback that comes in, that spells a starter because of injury is always going to be a game manager, a check down type guy, and Brandin Cooks is good for that. So when you get 9 targets, expect that to grow. He's worth a look. Again, don't use a waiver on him necessarily. Just add him in the morning if you got a weakness out there. And number 10, Ahmad Bradshaw. He's 20% owned. And this is based on one thing and one thing only. I said it in the last video. Trent Richardson is finished, people. It's not going to happen for him. So somebody's got to get it going. And Ahmad Bradshaw didn't look that bad there, particularly in the passing game. And if you got PPRs, you can have a pretty good option there. I believe Ahmad Bradshaw is going to take over this thing sooner rather than later. And though he's an injury risk and always has been, he's been a solid running back for years with the Giants. And if you guys watch any football, you know this. Trent Richardson is on his way out. And I can see it happening any game now. Ahmad Bradshaw is somebody you definitely want to keep on your watch list if you don't add him. And for the last 2 people, these are definite watch list people. John Brown of the Arizona Cardinals. That dude is exciting, man. I mean, he had only 2 catches or whatever, 5 targets for 29 yards, but that dude is quick as lightning, man, and he has great potential. And I've heard, you keep hearing all these comparisons to Marvin Harrison and all of that, and if that's anyway true, you know what that is. So Not anybody to add this week, but definitely somebody to watch. And if you got a real bad deficiency with receivers, you can add them. But I'd rather have any of the guys I mentioned before him for now, because he's the third option in Arizona. But keep him on your watch list. I have a feeling by week 8, whatever, he's going to be more valuable than he is now. And lastly, Isaiah Crowell. The 2 TDs was good to see. You know what I'm saying? That was good. He looked like he was prepared and ready to go. But again, TDs are questionable and fluky when it comes to running backs. But with the Browns' depth and problems at running back, Isaiah Crowell is also somebody worth looking at. So, you know, that's it for the list. And those are the 2 guys from the watch. And like I said, just use your waivers. You know, if again, most of you are in standard leagues, use your waivers. You know, just go for them when it comes to standard leagues. But if you're in a custom league where you drop to the back, use your waivers smart. You know, and also wavering isn't just for Wednesday. Anytime a player gets dropped, it becomes the same thing. A wait day, and then the day you can pick him up where he clears that waiver at 4:30 in the morning. So anytime you want somebody who's been dropped, the big day is Wednesday morning from the previous week. But then anytime somebody gets dropped, they got to sit and clear too. Same thing with the waivers. If somebody gets dropped that you really want to get, that number 1 priority will come of benefit, and that would be the reason to save number 1 priority if you have in standard leagues. If there's somebody out there you really don't like, hold on to it and see in the week if somebody drops somebody out of panic, and then you got that number 1 priority to get them. So don't be willy-nilly with any number 1 priorities, but it matters less in rankings when you're in their standard leagues where ranks go for it. So I hope this video helps, and if you got any questions, again, you can comment down here. And again, the best way to reach me is through Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at FFRealTalk, and ask me any waiver edition questions, and in particular start-sit questions as the week ends before Thursday or Sunday gets started. So I hope that helps you, and y'all have a good one. All right.